Episode 14, Part 1.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Don't Quit Your Day Job podcast with Mike, Keith, and Adam.
How's it going?
Today, you're probably wondering, why are we wearing the same Scooby-Doo t-shirt?
You got them on sale.
That too.
Maybe, yeah. Not only that, but there's a very good reason for it. The reason being is because today, we're going to cover our first season 2 episode 14. We're going to cover Saturday morning cartoons and television programming from the 1970s and 1980s. We're also going to touch on some after-school programming from when you came home from school, 3 o'clock and stuff like that, and a little bit of that Sunday programming as well. So let me just hand it over to Keith, and he'll kick off today's episode.
Okay, so we're always thinking of ideas for topics for shows, and we were like, one of the things that kids and this generation today didn't experience, what we experience is getting up early in your pajamas with a big bowl of your best sugar cereal.
Favorite cereal.
Great!
Your favorite cereal.
Cookie
and
Crisp.
like 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning, and sitting in front of your TV, which you had to get up and change the channels yourself. And there was 3 networks, major networks at the time, and you flip-flopped to watch what was called Saturday morning television. And it was basically it was a destination. It was like something that you were like, especially when it was the new year and they started in September. You're like, oh shoot, I can't wait. The new season.
Like Dice used to say, it was a must.
It was a must. It was a must. Getting in front of that TV and with your Frosted Flakes or your Rice Krispies or your Apple Jacks or your Captain Crunch or whatever, and just sitting there and watching your cartoons and your programming, because there was some live action stuff too, which we're going to cover. But anyway, it's a lot. So we're not getting into 90s because that's kind of like another generation. But
even though I watch cartoons way into my 30s.
Yeah, and there was some cool things that went into the 90s and stuff. But we're going to cover, for our age bracket and what we grew up in, is like late 70s and then the decade of the 80s, where there were a lot of cool, and really like, what the hell were they thinking, programming on Saturday morning. So we're going to cover the 70s first. Now, I mean, I really, to look back and say, wow, I remember this, and this show was the shit, and oh my god, this was my favorite. And it was fun to look back and say, wow, this is, and then it led into a lot of when we went out and merchandising, like early things of merchandising and cross promotion and this and that, and
like cereals and toys
and things that were out in pop culture, like video games. So we're like, oh well, we got to make that into an animated series, which we're going to cover. So anyway, I'm going to go into the 70s first, and I put like a best of list, and the first one, ironically, is celebrating its 50th anniversary this year, along with Adam and I's 50th anniversary of being on this earth, which is the Super Friends. Super Friends was hands down, and it was great. It was just the shit. You took all your DC characters from Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Aquaman, Aquaman just stayed to watch the Hall of Justice while the others were doing stuff. But anyway, and then they
come on,
he spoke to the fish.
He controlled the waves.
That's right. He
could do stuff.
He was good for something. Anyway,
watch those movies.
Right, but what happened was the first season was them with these kids and Wonder Dog, and it was like it was okay. But the narrator,
the Wonder Twins.
No, that was later on.
Yeah,
that was later on. But anyway, and the narrator was the very famous actor who people say I sound like at times, Ted Knight. Back there at the Hall of Justice. Well, anyway, so Super Friends then led into Challenge of the Super Friends, which was with the Legion of Doom, which was, my opinion, the best year of the Super Friends, because you had some of the top villains in the DC. What's the word?
Universe?
DC Universe against the Super Friends. So you had the Lex Luthor against
the Legion of Doom.
Legion of Doom was so cool, and but believe it or not, people think, oh, it was only really one season,
right?
But it was so cool and it's memorable. And then they incorporated Then that ended, and then they incorporated the Wonder Twins, Jan and
Jana.
Yeah, which
I still say that to this day.
what were,
Wonder Twins.
and
Powers
Greek
activate.
was the monkey.
Right.
Who was all right.
Who was
And
before Zan and Jana?
was the two kids and the Wonder Pup.
Right, but what were their names?
Wonder Dog.
What were their names?
I don't know, but it was that was the first season, 1973.
Wow.
And then basically,
Year of our births.
then the Super Friends led into the Superpowers team, which they incorporated characters like Firestorm and Cyborg, and then they brought in Darkseid as the main villain. And then eventually, ran its course, and it ended like in the late '80s. But that's how long the longevity of Super Friends. So that was one of the huge things. Taking on the superhero kind of universe, and most of this program that we're going to cover, the big studio that did it all was Hanna-Barbera. And they basically produced and created most of the programming that you're going to see. It was either them or Filmation. And I'll get into that also. But the next one I want to cover is Captain Caveman and the Teen Angels.
Captain Caveman!
Was that the name of Captain Caveman's band?
No, it was
The Teen Angels?
No. The Teen Angels were these girls that found him. Anyway, but Captain Caveman was so funny and was so cool, and it ran for many seasons. Probably one of my favorites, which was also in the late 70s, early 80s, was Fangface. So it was basically this guy that was cursed as a baby, and when it was a full moon, turned into a werewolf. And it was hysterical, and it was a group of, and it was him and 3 other friends.
In the backwoods
in
baseball
the baseball.
yeah.
And basically, his take, it was him and another character that was part of the group that was a kind of, Hanna-Barbera was infamous for having characters act like characters that were live action. So Fangface was, and him and the group was loosely based on characters from the Bowery Boys. And so when you watch it, you're like, oh
now
wow.
explain what the Bowery Boys
were a group of
we
guys.
got some millennials possibly
which
watching.
were even before our time.
Even
when the Bowery Boys were a group of guys that solved mysteries or got into capers, and so one of them acted like really like ooh ooh ooh, and so they based Fangface's character on that, and then the one that was kind of tough and everything was based on the leader of the Bowery. So it was kind of cool. Then Fangface in the second season brought in Baby Fang, or which was like a nephew or whatever who turned into a werewolf too, because they wanted to. It got so popular, like, well, let's introduce another character, which they did with Scooby-Doo, with Scrappy-Doo.
did
which we'll get into.
Was Fangface? Did he have like red hair? Or
No,
something like that?
he had blonde hair, but when he changed, it was like a totally different personality from when he went from the human form to the werewolf. But it was just
because I think I remember the baby more. I think I remember the baby.
Yeah,
Fangface
Baby
more.
Fang.
Yeah, right.
Then the another one, which I know is Mike's favorite, which everyone, even this generation, probably know of, but what we did was we watched it in reruns because people were like, oh, it ran forever. It was only one season, but they kept rebroadcasting it, and rebroadcasting it was Hong Kong Phooey.
Hong Kong Phooey, #1 super guy. Hong Kong Phooey, quicker than the human eye. He's got style, a groovy smile, and a mouth that just won't stop. When the going gets rough, he's super tough with a Hong Kong Phooey chop.
Hong Kong Phooey was the shit. The voice was Scatman Crothers, who was a very well-known character actor.
He was in The Shining.
He was in The Shining. He was the one that tells the kid, you have power, you have what we call the Shining.
Bronco Billy too.
Right. He was
right.
He was in Chico and the Man. He played the garbage man. Stick out your can because the garbage man's here, or something like that. He said.
Yep.
So he was really one. So they picked.
I want to just.
And he was also the voice of Jazz on Transformers.
I also want to just bring up one more point.
Prime.
At that time, what was that year? 1973.
I'd say
around
about
that time.
74. Yeah.
Around that time, there was a big craze of kung fu.
Yeah.
You had Bruce Lee and all these kung fu movies and
Chuck
stuff like
Norris,
that. So that was a big thing. So that's why Hong Kong Phooey did so well.
Right. Mm-hmm. But it was only really one season. So he was basically a dog who was a janitor, but he basically would jump into a file cabinet and come out with the uniform on, and he would solve like crimes. And it was just
And
cool.
it was really the cat that solved all the crimes.
Because Hong Kong Phooey really wasn't.
He was like a bumbling idiot. He was almost like Inspector Clouseau.
No, he's like
guys
Or
have
Inspector
some
Gadget,
memory.
which we'll get into later. Yeah.
But
You
anyway,
guys have some memory.
right. And then the
remember
next
the
one,
cat.
which I remember, which was hysterical, and it started in the late 70s and ran into the 80s, was Plastic Man. Plastic Man was great, and then there was a guy, remember Hula Hula?
Yeah, Hula Hula,
was
with the
part
Hula
of,
show.
Yeah, was good. So basically, Plastic Man was a DC character in the comics, and they brought him into animated form, and
His arms would like
his arms
stretch all the way out,
and he was a cool
like Stretch Armstrong.
Stretch Armstrong. He was just a cool superhero,
Which was a toy,
But,
Stretch
but the
Armstrong.
thing about Plastic Man was like it was funny. It was
Yeah.
funny and cool, and they incorporated all these like.
Do you remember who
super
did the
villains.
voice for
No.
Plastic
no,
Man?
No.
Well, we can put that on the screen.
I know the
I
girlfriend.
do.
The girlfriend's name was Penny.
Penny, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you do for Plastic Man?
Wasn't it Casey Kasem?
No. Casey Kasem did a lot of voices, including
Shaggy.
and Robin from the Super
Zoinks!
Friends, and also
I mean, like Zoinks.
Alan from Josie and the Pussycats.
Oh, that's
Which
right.
we get right. So the next one I want to get to, Mel, we did mention it wasn't everything animated. There was live action. So I think a lot of people today know of the Shazam movies that have been around the last couple of years. Last one didn't do well. The Fury of the Gods.
They both kind of.
Right. The first one was not bad.
First one was better than the
But
second.
believe it or not, there was
I like
a
both of them,
Shazam
actually.
live action show that ran from 74 to 76 on CBS.
The word which transforms him in a flash into the mightiest of mortal beings, Captain Marvel.
I remember that.
And there was actually two Shazams.
I'm a little older than you
Right.
guys.
And it was actually the guy that played Shazam as Billy
Batson.
He's actually
Excuse me.
in the last Shazam movie, Fury
Is
of the
he?
Gods. He has a cameo
I saw it,
saying,
which-
"You go Shazam."
We love you, Thundercrack.
You're the best, Captain Marvel.
It's kind of cool to see him.
Let me guess. He's bald as a bat.
No,
now.
he's actually got his whole his hair, but he's just
Because
kinda
I don't remember
and
that
he's
scene.
wearing the red and he's wearing the red T-shirt.
He's wearing the red
He was
T-shirt.
wearing a red T-shirt. So basically, it was Billy Batson and this. I guess it was known as the Elder, and they traveled in an RV around the country.
And the elder in
They
the
had an
movie is
RV,
Johnny
right?
Hunso, right? Is that,
Well,
is that the elder in the
this
movie?
guy was just a guy that wore a safari jacket that kind of wore.
Did they have like an RV?
They had an RV.
Yeah.
They traveled
Maybe
the
that was
country in
Black
an RV.
Adam, I don't know.
They traveled the country in an RV and just saving people and stuff. And but Shazam was part of the Shazam ISIS hour. ISIS was a female superhero who was like when she found this amulet.
A
or
good
something.
ISIS. A good ISIS.
A good right.
Yeah, no.
Not the one. No, not that one.
Yeah, not that one. Yeah,
And she basically
Actually,
became
there's
like
two.
a female superhero.
Three,
And
actually.
but Shazam was really the big hit, and there were actually two actors that played Captain Marvel on that. So that ran for that. Then another one on my list, which I thought was hysterical. Take Scooby-Doo, but put him on the water, and make it musical, and you got Jabberjaw. Jabberjaw was a shark, but he sounded like Curly from the Three Stooges. He even did did all that, and it was hysterical. Jabberjaw.
Right.
Jabberjaw. And it
So was the actor who played Curly, was he his voice? Or?
No, he was dead
he
a
was
long
dead.
time.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Curly. Yeah, Curly.
died
Well,
many,
actually,
many
wait a
years
minute.
ago.
Well,
But they,
actually,
yeah.
wasn't one of the Three Stooges still alive in the 1970s?
Mo. I think Mo.
Yeah.
Mo was around, and then the third.
I forgot their Jewish
then
names.
Joe,
I forgot the Hebrew names.
and then and the one who was the last Curly Joe.
Joe Besser?
Joe Dorita.
Oh, Joe Dorita.
Yeah. So anyway, Jabberjaw was also funny. Now I know one that everyone from our generation remembers, and it was cool. And you look back and you're like, what the hell were they thinking? But when we were kids, we thought it was the coolest shit. Was Land of the Lost. And Mike, you actually...
I actually met Holly and Chucka. Chucka was like this little guy. He was like a furry guy.
Caveman.
And he would run around and like get into mischief with the Land of the Lost people.
Yeah.
You'd have to look it up on YouTube. You could find it.
Now, Land of the Lost was part of...
You don't want to find it.
Yeah.
I hate it.
And then when they did a live action movie years ago with Will Ferrell, and it was so bad. But let me tell you something.
That was half the fucking show.
But let me tell you something.
A guy playing the Sleeve Stack a lizard man, or whatever the hell it was.
No, there was a
going
good
like this.
Yeah, but let me tell you something. When we were kids, we thought
It was
the
like
sleaze sacks
walking into a
scary.
bad.
We thought the scary.
Yeah, but when you were a kid,
When it don't even hurt you or
yeah,
that.
but when you were a kid, didn't you think the sleaze sacks were scary as shit?
No,
All right.
they sucked.
All right.
Let us know how you really feel.
I know. Well, anyway, Land of the Lost was.
I'm more scared of the real lizard people in Washington than the sleep.
All right. Anyway, Land of the Lost was coming from the great creative minds of Sid and Marty Krofft, who actually was it Marty Krofft that just passed?
Yeah,
Marty Krofft.
Yeah,
just passed.
it was Marty Krofft. I'm pretty sure.
But Sid and Marty Krofft basically created a franchise of all these shows, from Land of the Lost to Sigmund and the Sea Monsters to Lidsville
That was
to
my favorite.
H&R Puff and stuff.
I love that.
To I can keep,
from the use of heavy hallucinogens.
yeah, I can keep going on and on and
They
on.
probably dropped a lot of acid. I'm telling you.
But Land of the Lost
Smoked a lot of weed, I'm sure.
Believe it or not,
You're not gonna tell me the Boogaloos.
Oh, the Boogaloos. I got to tell you, but
You can't tell me that came out of a mind that wasn't chemically
Intoxicated, yeah.
So believe it or not,
Look it up.
Land of the Lost is considered their
Sigmund was my favorite.
Land of the Lost is considered one of their masterpieces.
Okay.
Oh, who was in the costume as Sigmund?
Who?
Billy Barty.
Oh, right, wow.
Yeah, very famous little person actor.
And he had that tooth?
Yeah.
The kid, one of the kids,
He was
the redheaded kid.
Johnny. Oh God, he was from.
Wasn't the actor who grew up to be? Didn't he
Yeah,
grow
the
up to-
redheaded kid. He was in.
Right? Didn't he grow
He
up to
played
be
Jody
an
in
adult
that.
actor?
Yeah, he
Family
played Family
Affair, wasn't it?
Right.
It was
That's
about
right.
yeah, and
Family Affair.
And he
started there
and
as
he
a
started
child
there, and then
actor.
when he became a teenager, he was on Sigmund and the Sea
Oh,
Monsters.
what was his name? We'll throw it up on the screen.
So Sigmund and Sea Monsters was after Family Affair.
Oh yeah,
Oh, yeah.
because he was much
okay.
older. So then the other
Watch
thing,
your Family Affair. Remember Police Academy 2?
so
Bob Goldwave. It's a rerun.
anyway, the other thing that the 70s, the 70s program, they took things that were like any type of thing. When something's hot, let's make it into a cartoon. So by the 1970s, even though they were around for forever, the Harlem Globetrotters were huge. They used to always show up on Wild World of Sports, and they were funny. And these were like the 70s Globetrotters had like Curly Joe and Mellow Lemon.
They were the most
famous ones. So they basically had a Harlem Globetrotters cartoon that was in the early 70s. But then years later, by the end of the 70s, they created the Super Globetrotters. So they took 4 of the Globetrotter members, and they basically had powers to turn into that had super ability. Anything to let's go off on
Let's make a buck.
Let's make a buck, and let's do like a. But it actually was a hit. These are some of the best things. Now the other thing that we always, I used to look forward to was the ABC Weekend Special. It came on really around 12 o'clock, 11:30, 12 o'clock, and it was basically very famous like novels at that time, and basically put on the big screen. So they would do a half hour, or sometimes they were an hour long, based on a book, like The Mouse and the Motorcycle, for example. I remember they did a version, a TV version of that, and it just was cool, and it had just a great opening where it was just cool. So when you see the opening, the other thing, which speaking of Scooby earlier, they had the Scooby Laugh Olympics.
It's Scooby's All-Star Laugh Olympics, starring Scooby-Doo and the gang. Scooby-Doo?
This was such a cool concept. What Hanna-Barbera did is they took mostly every one of their characters, even the villains, and they had 3 teams that would compete every week.
So it was like Wacky Races.
Yeah, but this was the 70s Laugh Olympics, and they would and they basically would do like they had like some type of a course they had to do, and they would compete against each other. So it ended up like Did Dastardly and Muttley were part of the bad team, right? And then they had the Scooby-Doos, and then they had the Yogis or whatever, and they kind of broke it up. So Captain Caveman, I think, was part of the Scoobies. The Scooby team. They kind of connected teams that were kind of like in that same type of connection, in a way. Like
there was Yogi Berras.
Yeah, the Yogi Bears, the Scooby Doos, I think, and then they had the villains or whatever it was.
Yeah.
The other thing, which
with the Yogi
I know
Bears.
we were popping jokes prior and during the week when we were talking about it, You could say what you want about the man now, but one of the things that maybe I should do it in the voice. You know, one of the shows that we all loved growing up to watching on Saturday mornings was Fat Albert and the Cosby Kids.
Hey, Keith.
Yes.
Don't quit your day job.
I got you. Fat Albert and the Cosby Kids was cool. I don't care who you were. Fat Albert was cool. And it was just, they were good, you know, like Cosby.
Good theme song.
Good theme song.
Fun theme
Cosby
song.
based it on his you know, childhood growing up with his group of friends. And it was just, and it ran forever.
And his brother, too.
And his brother.
Who
And-
sung the theme song?
I don't know, but there was actually a
Wait,
Bill.
see, it
Remember, there
seems
was
like-
Bill and Russell,
Yeah.
and then their
Russell
group of
was
friends.
his brother.
Right, Russell was his brother, and there was a Bill that looked like a young Bill Cosby, and then
Right.
the rest of them, from Fat Albert to all of them to Weird Harold, and all, and it
Mushmouth.
was Mushmouth, yeah, with the big buck teeth and all that.
I but just but lost control, but I was but gone but on crank, but and I bit but Steve Rebel but thumb off, but I'm but lucky to be but alive, but.
And
Tim Meadows did that great on Saturday Night Live.
oh, really?
Yeah, they did behind the music of. Yeah. I was on the Crystal Methamba. And
But I don't care who you are. Fat Albert was cool,
And
it
then,
was
you know,
right.
later on he brought in, what was that other character?
The Brown Hornet.
The Brown Hornet.
Which was
yeah.
basically, which was now the Brown Hornet was an outer space superhero that traveled the galaxy to save the worlds and the universes are out there. In between, he would drop off on planets and give roofies to the little space chicks.
Oh, God, you went there.
No, he went there. Oh.
he did go there.
Anyway, but
did
Have a
actually
Coke
go
and
there
a
and vote.
smile.
and that's all I'm going to say on that. But all jokes aside, Fat Albert and the Cosby Kids
Have a
was.
Coke and a smile. There's nothing in it whatsoever. Don't worry, honey.
And this was the funny thing about
That's a very bad Bill
the funny
Cosby.
thing about the Fat Albert and the Cosby Kids is that every show was about learning something in life, and at the end, because at the end you say, and you might learn something at when Bill's done with you. I'm like,
Oh, I'm sure you will. Look, an airplane.
Did you look that way? Hold on, let me put that in your drink.
Wait, this is supposed to be a wholesome Saturday morning cartoon show
Yeah,
today.
Well,
Let's-
whatever.
get
Well,
away.
our generation really got to watch the good stuff. Anyway,
Later on, we'll get to Paul Rubens. Rest in peace.
all right. So
Rest in
anyway,
peace, Billy.
Fat Albert and the Cosby Kids was awesome. And then the one
still
where
love you.
we're all wearing the shirts to represent is
My favorite.
Is one of the ones that really started the. Because it started in 69.
69, yeah.
69, but
69.
You could basically really say it, and it ran forever in different incarnations and different new shows involving him with Scooby-Doo.
Scooby-Doo Murder Mysteries.
Scooby-Doo. So basically, it started with Where Are You? It first started with Where Are You, Scooby-Doo, which was like the first couple of seasons. Then it led into the Scooby-Doo Mysteries, which the Scooby-Doo Mysteries was hysterical.
That was the best.
Scooby-Doo Mysteries was at that time, it was like early 70s. They would take famous people
Yeah.
and they actually did come in and voice they voiced themselves. So you had everyone
You
from
had Batman?
you had Batman and Robin.
Adam West.
You had that, right.
Adam West.
You had, I'm going to get, it gets good.
Who was the football player they had on there? What's his name?
What, playing himself?
Yeah, quarterback.
Well, because
I
it
think.
was like this week's episode, you had,
Wait.
you had Sonny and Cher.
Sonny and
You had
Cher.
Sonny Cher. You had Cass Elliot, Mama Cass. You had Don Knotts. You had the Harlem Globetrotters, which
That's
the
right.
Harlem Globetrotters basically
They were everywhere.
But they were smart Hanna
And
Barbera.
back-
Like
and
they're like,
back-
oh, let's have the Harlem Globetrotters, and then let's give them their own animated show, which is kind of how it worked. It's all the same studio anyway.
And they actually had the actual actors coming and do the
Sandy
voices.
Duncan.
Yep.
Sandy,
Mhm.
Phyllis Diller. I mean, you could go on.
All
and
the actual
you got,
actors
like
and the
if you went on
voices.
YouTube now and typed in Scooby-Doo Mysteries early '70s with celebrities, you would be like, oh my god! And they had like a Laurel and Hardy, even though they were
Right.
already gone. But
Right.
they had guys that sounded Three Stooges. So they took all these type of characters and threw them in to help out Scooby-Doo on a mystery in the gang. You know, would help.
And
So-
what was the thing at the end when they pulled the mask off? What did they
Oh,
say
if
all the
it
time?
wasn't for those dastardly kids or something like that, or those meddling kids,
Meddling
meddling
kids.
kids,
It was
I would have gotten away with it.
That's right.
I would have gotten away with it.
Like Zoink Scoob.
Right.
And there was always an amusement park.
Right.
And let me just say
It's
this.
Mr. Simmons from the amusement park.
Right, and what happened with Scooby-Doo was that, so from that, it led into the late 70s, early 80s. They're like, well, what can we do to make Scooby-Doo, interesting and kind of add someone new, which some people liked, some people didn't like, was introducing Scrappy-Doo. And Scrappy-Doo was the total opposite of Scooby, where Scooby-Doo was a fraidy cat.
Hey, Uncle Scooby.
Scrappy-Doo was a tough little pup who didn't take crap from anybody and kind of motivated.
He wasn't no Joe Cool, though.
Right.
I just want to add something about Shaggy.
Snoopy's alter ego.
Right?
Yeah.
Shaggy was like, he was the image of grunge before grunge happened. Right? And the only thing,
he was a hipster.
I have a theory.
Look at that photo of him.
He was a hipster stoner.
I have a theory about Shaggy, and I have to express that here. This is the place to express it. I have to say this, okay? Shaggy, first of all, Shaggy, it was the 70s, right? Shaggy was talking to a dog that thought the dog was talking to him, and he saw ghosts, and not only that, he was always hungry. He always had the munchies. So we know for a fact that Shaggy was a stoner.
Okay.
Oh, yeah,
You know what I mean?
We were
I don't know if you guys have seen.
Like zoinks!
I don't know if you guys have seen the show, but have you seen the supposed Scooby-Doo reboot show? Whether the Mindy Kaling did?
No, I did
for
not.
HBO Max.
Oh, well,
No, never saw it.
no, it's just about Thelma, right?
Yeah, it's just it's oh god.
Oh, that was the other thing too with Daphne and Fred. When they always broke up, they always broke up, right? Didn't Daphne and Fred always had a? And remember they made a joke about it one time. Fred's like, "Oh, I'm going with Daphne." Like you knew what was going on.
What was going on? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but Scooby-Doo.
But it's nasty. That show was show. I saw a few episodes. I turned it off. It's like it's totally like
so
just like
it was bad.
Oh, not just bad. It's raunchy. It's dirty. It's Daphne is Asian. She gets naked in like the girls' rock room at school.
We're talking about 70s kids program.
Okay, all right. I'm just saying. I know, but I'm just saying it's an abomination.
Not that this is a kid's
it's not,
show.
Yeah,
This is a kid show, but
it's explicit.
Well, yeah, it's not a kid
we're
show.
going from talking about
that show
kids programming to
that
soft
show
porn.
just
Anyway, but Scooby.
So many different wrong.
Now, Scooby-Doo went on forever, and I think one of the last takes on Scooby-Doo was the 13 Ghosts of Scooby-Doo, I remember, which was like the late 80s, where they incorporated Vincent Price, where Scooby and Shaggy opened up a Pandora's box, and all these ghosts got loose, and it was Scooby and Shaggy, and they only kept Daphne on later in the later years, and they had this little kid that was hanging out with them, and they had to retrieve all.
Remember this at all.
It was called the 13 Ghosts of Scooby-Doo. I mean,
That's a long list you got there, Keith.
This is so much in the 70s. Now, the worst.
We get a lot to get through.
There was a lot of bad things that came out of the 70s and animated. There was basically Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kids, which is considered one of the worst Saturday morning things. It was just a take. It wasn't even a take on the series. It just sounded right. So they put that on, and we'll show.
They just go with name recognition.
Right, exactly.
So they
then they had C-Lab 2020, another thing, just boring. Then they took a series that was popular, and they're like, oh, let's make it into an animated series. So they basically, which was one of my favorite series of all time as a live action, but I remember watching the animated series in reruns. I was like, oh my god, this is so boring, and it really sucked.
So what is it?
When Keith says boring, he means educational.
No. Return to the Planet of the Apes. Return to the Planet of the Apes. So what they did was...
I never knew they weren't the first time.
Yeah, what they did was it was another group of people that basically landed on a planet.
Besides Charlton Heston.
Right, but believe it or not, the apes had modern technology. So they flew around in helicopters and this and that. It just wasn't done well.
Yeah, and at that time, just to give a little background, Planet of the Apes was a very popular movie series.
Yeah.
So they, of course, marketing. They had toys. They had the cartoons.
Yeah. So
they just.
So did they base the Tim Burton, Mark Wahlberg movie on that one?
Well, that's a whole other thing. Now another thing based on a series, and believe it or not, the series was canceled. But they decided, let's make it into an animated series. Well, I think you were talking about it. You watched a few episodes, but it kind of was very. It was boring and kind of dull, but I guess some people liked it. They basically made Star Trek the animated series.
I liked it. I saw it on Netflix a few years ago, and I didn't finish it for some reason or whatever. But what I saw, I liked.
Yeah.
It was a good. Okay. Yeah, the animation was kind of static. It was kind of like the storylines were kind of slow. But
yeah, that's what they said.
But I think what it was to translate it from the TV show to a animated show was kind of difficult. So that's maybe why it didn't jive with a lot of people. Yeah, but the opening was pretty cool. I remember.
Yeah.
If you watch the opening,
and they did get, I believe, a lot of the original actors to come back and voice their
Wasn't it
their
that
characters.
William Shatner did the voice of Kirk, but Leonard Nimoy didn't come back?
I'm not sure. We could, you could look it up. You could probably check IMDb or something like that.
Well, Mike used to be able to look up stuff.
Now we were talking about from earlier from Scooby-Doo where they had guest stars, where like the Three Stooges. They basically, the next one I'm going to get into a worse series, the Robotic Stooges.
Oh, God.
Do you guys remember that?
No.
They took the Three Stooges and they made them into
Thankfully, no.
Well, yeah, this was really bad. They took the Three Stooges and made them into things where they could change their bodies and kind of like all had like abilities where they were robotic. Yeah, short-lived. The Amazing Chan and the Chan Clan.
Never heard of it.
All right, so basically they took Charlie Chan and a group of his kids and they said, well, let's make
That'd be canceled the first
right,
episode.
And that's why. And let's make it an Asian Scooby-Doo.
Motherfucking Charlie Chan.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, jeez.
Oh, God.
I just think about Reservoir Dogs when Harvey Keitel doing that whole bit with the book, with the black book. Or
now the next one is
the phone book.
Kate Hudson's father was part of the Hudson Brothers. The Hudson Brothers Razzle Dazzle show. It was a live action show.
Never heard of it.
It was really bad, and it was another thing that ran.
That's why I never heard of it.
Like I said, they were smoking and doing some really freaking messed up drugs. Yeah, really. Do you guys remember the Brady Kids?
That I remember. Yeah, I remember that.
So basically, it was the Brady Kids, and they actually had like I think the talking the pandas and the talking crow.
You know what's funny?
And whatever. It was just so bad.
Was the Brady Kids the animation? I think it was the same as Super Friends, maybe.
No, the Brady Kids was Filmation.
Oh. Okay.
Filmation Studios, which did a lot of things. Now,
wasn't Filmation a rip-off of Hanna-Barbera, kind of?
Well, it was another company that did animation.
Yeah, but they had very similar type of animation.
Well, not really.
A lot of it was the same back then.
You knew when you were watching Filmation, like we'll get into like He-Man later on and stuff. That was Filmation. Anyway, now speaking of Scooby, now
can't wait to get to that.
This is the thing with Hanna-Barbera. They had good programming and good characters. What kind of hurted them, and they were infamous for doing it, is that they would create characters that would basically it's very similar to a character that they already had. So why create another character when you already have that character?
So they were
because if it works,
use it. So basically, they had Goober and the Ghost Chasers, which was a Scooby-Doo ripoff. See, you guys don't remember it, but that's why it's considered one of the worst.
There was
Goober
also
and the Ghost Chasers.
There was a program called Ghostbusters. It had nothing to do with the movie.
I will get into that. I will get into that when we get into after-school programming.
All right.
And then that's a whole nother thing. And then they had the New Adventures of Gilligan, which was from 74 to 78. All the actors from the TV show, well, what else were they doing? Except Tina Louise. Ginger, and she did not want any.
She was busy doing Stepford Wives.
Well, that might have been around time. Well, she just didn't want any. She didn't want any association with the. So they all came back, and then Dawn Wells, who played Marianne, she was doing something else, so she couldn't voice the. So they had one actress who did the voices of both, and they even made Ginger into like a blonde because they didn't want to get sued by Tina Louise.
Yeah, but she didn't own the character.
No, but it was just like she didn't want anything to really
intellectual property.
So she was a blonde. So they made her a blonde.
A blonde?
Yeah, they made her a blonde. So that's like the
so even more like Marilyn Monroe.
Yeah, they.
So we're going into the 80s.
Going into the 80s.
Now this is really when
after about an hour.
It's all right.
I'm kidding.
No, now the 80s. The 80s. There was a lot. There was a lot of stuff. There was a lot of ground.
This might be a three-parter.
Anyway, with the 80s programming was really when things got cool. I guess 70s they learned what went right, what went wrong, and then sometimes they didn't know what went right. Now the good, hands down, in my opinion, if I had to pick one program that really embodied my childhood and watching Saturday morning TV, had to be the Smurfs. Hands down. Now, prior to the Smurfs, I remember going into like card stores or hobby stores, and you used to see these little figurines, and you're like, who are these guys? It was kind of like the merchandising came out first, but you didn't have nothing about it where this artist created these little characters. Then NBC was like, okay, let's make it into a Saturday morning cartoon show. The Smurfs was a hit from the day it aired. It was a hit. It was so cool. There was a personality for every type of Smurf, and I think that's why people related.
Jokey Smurf.
You had Hefty. Hefty, the body, Papa Smurf, the leader, clumsy, brainy.
And of course, there was Hottie.
The one female Smurf.
Smurfette. Which was, then later on they
That's how we learned about girls.
Yeah, but there was just one Smurf.
That's how we learned about girls.
And the female Smurf was not even...
What the heck was going on there?
And the female Smurf was created by Gargamel, the villain.
Gargamel, yeah.
But anyway, the Smurfs was just amazing, and it was just done so well, and it came from Hanna-Barbera, of course.
I'm going to go back, because again, I'm like 3 years old. I'm 3 years older than you guys, so like... The Smurf merchandise, like the little Smurf figurines,
it was great.
Everybody in school was getting those Smurfs. We would trade them. Oh, I have this one, I don't have that one. How many do you have? I have 27 of them. I have 35.
I used to buy one a week. Yeah.
Everybody was buying these things like crazy.
I still, believe it or not, put away. I have a few that I kept.
I think I only have one left.
It seems like a karate Smurf. I have the Thanksgiving Smurf with the turkey.
I have the one with the
Christmas Smurf. Yeah. Oh, Jokey.
Thanksgiving Smurf?
Yeah, there was one like dressed up as a pilgrim, they would create a Smurf for every type of occasion.
Indigenous people Smurf.
Exactly, well, whatever. But the Smurfs, and then you want to talk about merchandising, when we're going to get into the 80s really, when we started this episode, the 80s really took off where a show was created and then merchandising it went everywhere.
It exploded.
And Smurf merchandise was everywhere.
So, my question is to you guys: what is the Smurfs of today?
What would be equivalent to the Smurfs as far as like an animated series?
Yeah, animated series, movies, merchandising.
I don't know, Teen Titans.
No.
Teen Titans Go. I don't know.
Very similar.
I don't really watch anything.
Characters?
No. I don't watch it, but I know it's from just like.
So give us some knowledge.
The zeitgeist, the pop culture.
Share the knowledge.
Trolls.
Well, that's a movie series.
That's a movie series. They never really made it into a Saturday morning.
That wasn't ever a cartoon. Never.
No.
I mean, they were the little toys.
Because I did my research.
Being like elderly and shit.
No, elderly. Elderly, really?
No,
we're not that old.
He's elderly.
Believe it or not, the trolls were big in the 70s.
They were dolls.
Yeah, dolls, yeah.
With the hair. My uncle used to have them.
Right.
The trolls.
Yeah.
But, okay, they were actually around in the 70s?
Yeah.
The actual little figurines.
The little figurines were, yeah.
I had them.
But now it seems like they're very popular for this movie.
As far as the kids,
I mean, there's been so many these movies. And
the music in those movies, too. Justin Timberlake and stuff like that.
Okay.
So, the Smurfs, now...
Seems like that's the new Smurfs to me.
All I know is
the
Smurfs, and then the thing about the Smurfs too is that it even when they took a break, they brought the Smurfs back and they created new movies with them. I remember when they did the live action Smurfs movie, they had Hank Azaria play Gargamel. He actually played a pretty good Gargamel.
Wasn't Katy Perry in one of those movies?
Yeah, she did the voice. She did the voice of Smurfette.
I was wondering. I knew somebody famous.
Yeah, she did the voice of Smurfette when they did that. So the Smurfs, the Littles. Remember the Littles?
We are the Littles.
The Littles were based on the books.
Oh, okay.
And so ABC, it had on ABC. I remember watching the Littles. That was cool. The stories were fun, and that was cool. Thunder the Barbarian.
I remember that.
Thunder the Barbarian was the shit because it took place in the post-Apple apocalypse, and in the future, Earth is like kind of destroyed.
Did you say Apple apocalypse?
Apocalypse. Apple Jacks. I was eating some Apple Jacks when I watched it.
You were thinking of the cereal you used to when you were watching from the
Barbarian was
Thundercats.
Cool. And that also came from Hanna-Barbera Studios. That was just great. Shirt Tales. Remember Shirt Tales?
Oh, yeah.
Whatever they said, it ended.
Were those
what they were
foxes or
thinking.
something?
No, it was like a panda or a monkey. It was like a group of, and they all had shirts, and whatever they were thinking appeared on their shirt.
shirt,
on the
Oh,
shirt.
okay. So
And
like
they-
Care Bears sort of thing.
Yeah,
So,
it's like the next one, which is probably in my top 3 of the 80s, was Muppet Babies.
Muppet Babies.
Muppet
yeah.
Babies was
That was good.
So, what now? What this is what
was
happened.
it the shit?
It was the shit.
Just the shirt.
What Muppet Babies was, it kind of had its introduction in the Muppets Take Manhattan movie,
Right.
Where Piggy has a dream sequence where she said, "Kermit, remember? Imagine if we were all babies,
Mama,
right,
Papa,
right,
Chihuahua."
right." And they did that. So basically, Jim Henson was like, "Why don't I take that now?" And make it into a Saturday morning cartoon where all of
There you
these
go.
Muppets are babies and they're in the nursery. And they did, and the show ran forever.
It was successful,
It was
yeah.
successful. The
It's
ride,
amazing stuff that pops in
Weren't
your
there
head for
toys
years.
made from that as well?
yeah, Muppet Baby toys. But the
Talking about
time.
merchandising.
but what was cool is like it basically they used their imagination. Like there was one where basically Kermit thought he was Indiana Jones,
Oh,
and he's like, "Look, this looks like we're in the Temple of Doom," and all of a sudden, so they did.
And that was before Disney owned them.
Yeah, yeah. So Muppet Babies was great. It was
We're
hysterical.
not going to talk about what they did to the Muppet Babies now.
No.
We're not gonna go there.
We're not.
But Muppet Babies.
I know, they may not
but
know, but
Muppet
I know.
Babies was a very successful '80s thing. Richie Rich, remember Richie Rich?
Yeah.
Richie Rich was big hit.
Yeah, I
Richie
remember
Rich was
Richie
cool
Rich.
because I remember as a kid we used to buy the comics of Richie Rich, and then they finally made him into an animated Saturday morning TV, and it was done well. It was done well. It was so that ran from Alvin and the Chipmunks.
Yeah. Well, Alvin and the
Well, that
Chipmunks
was
go
everybody
way
knows
back.
how.
Right, but
Everybody
they-
knows
they
how
brought it
is.
back.
Right. What they brought it back was because they had an Alvin and the Chipmunks Christmas special.
Right.
And that basically did so well. They're like, well, let's make that now into a weekly Saturday morning
They don't-
cartoon show.
It
And
was pretty
and it was
successful,
very
yeah.
successful because they involved it. Remember, they introduced the Chipettes
The Chipettes, yeah.
and all that.
Chipettes.
And so Alvin and Chipmunks, very successful, ran basically throughout the entire decade. When it took off. Godzilla. Do you guys remember the animated Godzilla?
I do
I
not.
remember Godzilla. Yes, I do.
So Godzilla
And Godzuki.
and Godzooky, exactly. So-
Adam, didn't you say something about this new Godzilla thing?
Godzilla -1.
So Godzilla was basically about a group of people
About a big wizard.
that were that were on a boat, and they would get into when they ran into any type of danger, they would signal something on the boat, like a signal to call Godzilla, who was basically underwater, and he would come up and help them.
So Godzilla was basically.
And then Godzooky was on the boat with them.
So
which is-
Godzilla was basically a good guy.
Yeah, it was a good guy. Yeah, Godzilla.
Okay.
Yeah, Godzilla. Scooby and Scrappy Doo, which we mentioned, because Scooby Doo ran into the '80s, so we have to include Scooby Doo with Scrappy now. Scrappy Doo. The one that we all loved, and believe it or not, it only ran for one season, but we think it ran forever because of reruns and reruns and reruns, was Spider-Man and His Amazing
Oh,
Friends.
that was good. That was a good one.
Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends was awesome. It was Spider-Man with Iceman and Firestarter. Firestarter?
Yeah,
or
when
Firestarter?
when you're a young kid, Firestarter.
You know, I got Firestarter mixed
When
up
you're a
with
young boy,
Firestorm.
when you're a
yeah.
young boy,
Right.
when you're a young boy watching Firestarter.
One was Marvel, one was DC, one was a woman, one was
but
not.
what was cool about it is that at the time there was a Marvel Studios that took off, but the narrator on every episode was the legendary Stan Lee. So he was your narrator, and actually at the end he would always say Excelsior, which was his
Right.
trademark line.
Dun, dun.
And just the storylines were cool, and it was but it only ran one season. Only ran one season, and there was an Incredible Hulk series, but it was okay. That's why I didn't really. I'm mentioning it, but it wasn't like.
Yeah, I was more into the Amazing Friends.
The Amazing
Spider-Man
Friends, yeah. And if anyone has Disney Plus, being that they own the Marvel Universe, you can actually watch the old Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends on Disney Plus. So if you didn't grow up with it, watch them now.
It was a good one.
It was a really good series. The one that I actually have a copy of in my hand, which is amazing, was Dungeons and Dragons. This was such a great series. Believe it or not, it only was a season or two. And it's about a group of...
Only 2 seasons?
I think, yeah. It was a group
Seemed
of...
like it was
It's
Yeah.
like a lot of DVDs
it was 27 episodes.
27.
27 episodes.
Did some of these, did they actually back then extend the seasons?
Yeah,
They
basically...
just repeat the same episodes.
Yeah, repeat this like Spider-Man and Amazing
Yeah, it
Friends.
seems like those shows, some of the shows
They went
just
on forever,
they ran
but
out
they
forever,
didn't.
but they didn't really. But
And then one day, they're
Dungeons
gone.
and Dragons was 27 episodes. Now the concept of Dungeons and Dragons was this group of kids are at an amusement park and they're like, oh look, it's the Dungeons and Dragons ride, and they get on and all of a sudden they're like, wait a minute, what's happening? And the roller coaster basically puts them into another dimension where they're actually in the world of Dungeons and Dragons. And then there's a little guy that comes over who's the dungeon master, and they have to, every week they're trying to find their way to the portal to get back home. The series never gave them a closing. When you get the box set, there is the radio script where they do finally get home. I wish they would make this into a live action series. Well,
they
movie.
made a movie.
Right, but they
keep fucking it up.
No, but they didn't make it into the concept of the animated
series.
The
actual, yeah.
They actually was a car. But there was a car commercial
wait,
ad
the
from a few years ago.
one-
Remember there was a car commercial ad? I don't know if it was from Germany or whatever. That took the Dungeons and Dragons concept and made it into a commercial. And I was like, this is so cool.
I want to just add one thing about actual Dungeons and Dragons. Can I just add this? Dungeons and Dragons was a very popular game that kids used to play in the early 80s. I, in fact, nerd alert, I, in fact, played it a few times with some friends.
My friends weren't as
But
cool.
it got, like, kind of out of control, and it was like, you're making stuff up, you know that. I'm like, I can't play this game anymore because you're just starting to make stuff up. It was also very popular in the TV show Stranger Things. The kids were playing
the Hellfire
Dungeons
Club.
and Dragons.
The Hellfire
Club was playing Dungeons and Dragons. So that's a little background for some of you, Gen Z kids who, if you're watching this with your parents or grandparents, because we're that old, that's a little background for you. Continue, Keith.
Okay, so like I said, when he was talking about the Dungeons and Dragons, they're like, well, the whole role-playing game and everything was so big, they're like, so that's when CBS said, like, well, let's make
some money from a cartoon.
Let's make some money and create a cartoon. But this was but this was an example of something that
was good.
That was really good. They're like, wow, that was a great idea of creating something where these kids are on a ride and they actually are in the world of Dungeons and Dragons. I wouldn't have owned the box set if I didn't. The writing was really cool too, and it really was kids going into more adult. The storylines were very cool. So Dungeons and Dragons. ABC weekend specials continued in the 80s, so I'm adding that. Garfield and Friends was very good, which was cool because the original voice of Garfield was Lorenzo Music, and just it was funny. It was cute. It was like, oh wow, finally Garfield in animated.
What about Heathcliff, who was very
what
were some of the themes of the ABC weekend specials?
They just basically they was
they were based on books, novelizations,
novelizations presented to the small screen, for television. So they would take like the adventures.
We need that again.
It was so good because it actually got
kids.
One of the best ones was something about a witch, and they actually did a sequel.
Okay.
But anyway,
I guess. These are live action, right?
That was most of them. Yeah. Oh no, some of them were animated.
Some of them were animated.
Some of them were animated, but some of them were live action.
And I guess there were actual stars who were in those.
They got people to voice it, or they actually had actors that were some of them went on to big things.
But no big stars of the. Time.
No. Then going to the 80s because you got a success of a good movie, the real Ghostbusters. Now, I'm going to stress the real, because at the time, there was another Ghostbusters series, which I'm going to get into when we talk about after-school programming, that took the term Ghostbusters, because there was a show in the mid-'70s where Larry Storch and Fess Parker about guys that were detectives that were like ghost hunters.
And there was a guy dressed in a gorilla suit.
And a gorilla suit, right. And so
explain who Larry Storch was.
Larry Storch, he just died I think this year or last year, and he was a very famous character actor from F Troop, and
there was a TV show called F Troop, like in the 60s,
right? In the 60s, right. But anyway, so they had the name, so they were competing with the Ghostbusters that we know of, the movie version. So
1984.
So they basically, what the Ghostbusters animated one that included like an animated Slimer, wanted to really say, no, we are the real Ghostbusters. This is the.
I didn't like that. I didn't like that they hung out with Slimer.
Well, yeah, but
Slimer wasn't a bad. Even in the movie, Slimer wasn't bad.
No, well, that's why they made it. He was part of the team.
Yeah, but when they made him part of the team, I was like, it is.
Remember, it is a kids program. It's a kids program.
They're supposed to put Slimer away, It's like,
he's a ghost,
right? He's a ghost, right?
And the thing is, if you notice on the series, which when I was doing some research, they're all wearing. They're not
the containment,
when they did the pilot.
unit.
When they did the pilot, they were wearing the same uniforms as the movie. But then when when the show ran further, or even after the pilot, each one had to wear a different color. Because they would have had to pay a lot more money to the studio because
for the licensing.
The licensing, exactly. And there were some big names that voiced a lot of the characters. Like in the beginning, Lorenzo Music, who voiced Garfield, actually voiced Bill Murray's character. Arsenio Hall did the voice of Winston. Yeah,
I don't remember that.
Yeah. So there were some very famous.
So Bill Murray and Dan Aykroyd and Howard Ramis were not involved.
And what's his name? Ernie Russell.
Okay, they're probably
none of them could do that. None of them provided the voices.
Bill Murray's a pain in the ass to do anything.
So now another thing that was big. Well, let's take a very famous candy. And what if they were cartoon characters and lived in a forest? Oh, look, we got gummy bears. Believe it or not, Gummy Bears ran for 6 seasons.
Yeah.
It started
boy.
in '85. It was a Disney property.
Glad I missed that one.
Did well, and
that's what I want to watch. You know,
Gummy bears.
but it was like, but they took the
No, I
that
want to
should be
eat
going
gummy
in my
bears.
mouth.
But it actually was a hit. So these are things that were
I
good.
was too old to watch that.
Well, this was, but it was '85, so it was.
I was 15 at that time.
All right. Well, anyway, the next one.
You know what's funny though? Can I go back to Ghostbusters for a minute? It's just funny how that movie, when you think about it, yes, it was rated PG, but it did have a lot of like adult themes and adult. When you think about it, it turned into a cartoon. For kids. I always found funny. I know that Rambo was turned into a cartoon. And
Rambo
I'm getting into. Oh, I will get to that.
Rambo was a cartoon.
Oh, yes. I will get to that.
The Force of Freedom.
I'm going to get to that. Oh, horrible. That's after school. Believe me, I'm going to get to that.
Okay. But I just found, like, in Ghostbusters, you know, these are guys that are like smoking cigarettes. Is like, what do you call it? Venkman, not Venkman. Ray Stantz has a dream about, you know what he has a dream about. There was a woman above him.
Floating above him.
Yeah, and his eyes.
Because I guess he got too involved with his work.
I don't think like, it's like, you're turning this into a kid's cartoon?
Yeah.
Really?
But
and Venkman is always trying to hook up with Dana, and you know, yeah, I know she was a dog, but
anyway,
but
she wasn't a dog. She was a bitch.
And I know the new movie Legacy. Legacy's the next one, right? But I know that after,
you got like 27 pages.
I know that Afterlife. I know that
this
Afterlife.
is going to be a 12-parter.
I know that Afterlife had kids, you know, but it always seemed like the original team and like, you know, when you first see all those guys, those adult guys, you kind of look up to, even though it's like a fantasy and all that, doing all those like cool like, in addition to, you know, hooking up with women, and being cool and kind of, you know, it just never seemed like it should be for kids for me. It just seems like even though it was PG, you know.
All right.
Yeah. All right.
It almost seemed like it was rated R when I was a kid. Ghostbusters. Today it probably would have been rated R, right?
All right. Speaking of rated R, well, I was gonna get to it, but anyway, things about going over kids' heads. There was the Bugs Bunny and Roadrunner show.
And that was a good one.
That ran for it was on CBS.
I remember the intro of that. That's cool.
Yeah,
that was cool.
When they're all dancing on the stage and they're coming across and
I dim the lights.
Yeah. And the thing about the Bugs Bunny Roadrunner show, they did really focus more on the Roadrunner and Coyote, hence because it was called the Roadrunner
Well, you know what
show.
that was? That was like that was kind of a takeoff. I guess Chuck Jones was it Chuck Jones.
Yeah.
Chuck Jones was trying to do kind of a takeoff of 40s musicals, like 30, 40, that type of thing or whatever, like
entertainment.
And back in the day, the kids would still like that because.
Their
parents kind of showed them those old movies.
But see, the Bugs Bunny Roadrunner show did start in the 70s, but it ran forever. But they did create new cartoons from them and all that stuff. Now, the other one, which, believe it or not, we all watched, I don't care who you are, and even if you got older, you watched it, and it was, and I'll give you a hint, Mecca Lecca Hi, Mecca Hiney Ho.
I'm drawing blanks.
Mecca Lecca Hi, Mecca Shiny Ho. You're not saying it right.
I don't
Pee-wee's
remember.
Playhouse.
Yeah. Oh God.
That's right.
I have to call.
We mentioned that before.
And who was the genie, Adam?
Phil Hartman.
You got it.
The late great Phil Hartman.
And there was a lot of.
Oh, you know who else was on there?
Yes, and at the time he was Larry Fishburne.
Right.
He was Cowboy.
Lawrence
He was
Cowboy Curtis.
Cowboy Curtis. Pee-wee's Playhouse was so cool.
Very good. Ahead of its time.
Way ahead of its time. Let's take Mr. Rogers'
It was
Neighborhood.
really not for children.
It was
really.
not for children.
And was it? Wait,
Wasn't
wasn't it first on HBO as a special?
Yeah, well, no.
Yes,
what happened
yes,
was that
yes.
after-
That was a
yeah,
Broadway show.
It was a
wasn't
Broadway
it?
show. Yeah,
Right.
it was a
Oh,
Broadway.
it was.
Right, you had.
Oh, okay.
Paul Rubens brought that to Broadway.
And he had,
Okay.
and he had Cherry, the chair on the stage.
chair,
and everything.
yeah.
Right. But what happened was, being that
For adults,
right?
actually,
Being that
usually,
Pee-wee's Big
I mean,
Adventure
not
was
usually, originally.
Pee-wee's
Yeah.
Big Adventure, which was 1985, I believe. Yeah, it was.
Sounds about right.
Yeah,
Tim
yeah,
Burton.
85. Yeah, it was so big. They're like, well, now let's put Pee-wee and give him a, and give him a Saturday morning thing. It was so cool. The secret word of the day. If somebody mentioned it, everyone starts screwing the whole, all the puppets.
That was a fun show.
It was a fun show. It was way
It was
ahead
very,
of its-
very creative.
very creative. It all came out of the mind of Paul Rubens, who
Yeah.
we
Yeah,
just
brilliant.
recently lost in this past year. And it was cool. I don't care who you are. I never found anybody to say, "Oh, Pee-wee's Playhouse, that was stupid as shit." It was freaking cool as shit. It was a great show. It really was. It really changed Saturday. It did change Saturday morning television.
Yeah.
That hats off to Paul Rubens
The late
and
Paul
Pee-wee
Rubens,
and
rest in
Pee-wee's
peace again.
Pee-wee's Playhouse. Really a big part of 80s Saturday morning programming. Next was the Little Rascals. They did an animated Little Rascals that kind of was in the same hour of Richie Rich, and it actually was
sorta
really.
remember
Wasn't
it.
like Cosby trying to stop the Little Rascals?
He actually. Oh no, he owned.
He owned?
He owned the rights to the originals.
the original.
Right,
okay.
but they made an animated Little Rascals, which was actually really. It was done.
He
it
was
it
trying
well.
to stop the Little
Yeah.
Rascals?
Yeah.
Why?
Because he didn't want to have the kids put drinks in the roofies in the drinks. That's
The-
why.
the- wait.
He didn't want buckwheat putting
Why?
stuff in the
Because he
buckwheat.
didn't want the competition with the what do you call it?
I don't know.
Fat Albert
Fat
and the
Albert.
Cosby Kids.
I don't know, but
Cosby Kids?
the Little Rascals animated show.
I don't know. Maybe
was
he
done.
thought it was racist or something.
I don't know. Well, how they did it on
Oh
Saturday morning.
well, no, maybe buckwheat.
No, but they did it when they did it on Saturday morning. It was really Stymie was on the Saturday
But the
morning.
kids
Yeah.
all got
I
together.
mean,
Yeah.
back then-
It
yeah,
was like
yeah.
anti-racist.
No, but if you know-
You know, if bitch and complain about racial diversity and stuff like that, in
that
the
was they brought
1930s,
kids together.
Yeah.
you had black kids and white kids,
Yeah.
and all together. They were playing together. None of the kids made fun of each other.
That's
they didn't make
right.
right because of their
yeah.
color.
Except for Froggy.
And that's what they say. And that's what they say that kids, kids don't discriminate.
That's right.
Yeah. If you
It's
go,
a
Kids-
learned behavior.
It's a learned behavior.
But anyway, we're getting off
so, yeah,
topic.
we're getting off topic.
So,
but
yeah,
if you go on YouTube,
That's why I get pissed off with
you
this
could
whole
probably look for Little Rascals cartoons from the '80s, and the show was really done well. And they partnered it with it was like the Richie Rich Little Rascals Hour.
Oh, okay.
I don't remember that he was. I don't remember they were
it was
together.
they combined the two shows. Then another thing. Now CBS was like, well, okay, ABC's doing so well with weekend specials. Let's have our own novelizations put to screen but in animated.
Is it
form.
NBC or CBS?
It was CBS. It was called CBS Story Break.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
I remember
And
that.
it started in '85. It ran for 3 seasons, and it was actually a big hit.
Even
for
though
them.
I really wasn't watching much, Saturday morning stuff, because I was a little older, sometimes I would catch it. here and there.
So, and then the other two, which they weren't animated, but you knew your Saturday morning was coming to an end, and it was on a local. For us, it was locally Channel 11 PIX, Soul Train.
That's right.
Soul Train
Oh,
with the late great Don Cornelius. Soul Train was
Got a lot of my dance moves from watching
Soul Train was the shit. And then
And what else?
And
What was
then,
on ABC?
And then on ABC, if you really wanted to know not how to dance, you watched with the late great legendary Dick Clark. You had American Bandstand, which American Bandstand came on at like 12 o'clock. Yeah.
That's right.
How many people? How many
Who sang the theme
iconic?
song, Adam?
Barry Manilow.
There you
That's
go.
right.
That's right. He wrote it and sung
By
it.
the
Nice
way-
Jewish boy from Brooklyn.
By the way,
Yeah.
I think he might be gay. Oh wait, he came out as gay. Okay.
Anyway.
Anyway,
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
Didn't he just come out actually?
Yeah, no,
A while ago.
a while ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he was
All
with
right.
his
Mandy was about a dog.
Yeah.
It wasn't about a girl.
Well, you came when you. Wait.
All right, anyway. Okay, this is a kids show, right? Anyway.
No, this is not a kid's show.
This is
not
not a
kids'
kid's
show.
This is Soul Train and American Bandstand, totally two different types of shows, both great in their own
But
way.
I think I know where Adam was going to go about
Yeah.
American Bandstand. Like,
Yeah.
so many famous people,
Oh,
like
yeah,
Madonna,
iconic.
Prince. Prince
Yeah.
was like, he was just like looking around, like, he did that song, Wanna
Look-
Be Your Lover.
No, I remember him doing Little Red Corvette on. I remember
His first song was
but-
Wanna Be Your Lover.
But see,
was
but
on there.
Bandstand ran forever, so I put it in '80s because I remember.
That's like a whole other show.
Yeah, it was a whole other show.
Madonna,
Now I'm
what
gonna,
did Madonna say
I'm
on that
gonna
show? What do you
I'm going to rule the
What
world
do you
or
want to
something.
do? Yeah.
I'm gonna yeah. So,
What do you want to do? I want to rule the
but
world.
if you go into the '70s, you could see a lot of
and
famous
Debbie Harry.
Well, how about
Today she get
how
canceled
about
for it.
Travolta in the '70s
But,
on American Bandstand?
She
Oh,
dressed
yeah.
as a.
Gonna let her in. Travolta singing. His
Oh yeah.
Yo, Keith.
Debbie
Don't
Harry.
quit your
day
day job.
All right, so now
Debbie Harry dressed as a. I don't know if you could still call them that Native American on that show. I'm pretty
I
sure.
think that's a proper term, Native American.
Yeah, I understand. I remember
Okay.
she was in that
Indigenous,
outfit.
no, indigenous person.
Okay.
Indigenous person.
So now
Okay.
this is the fun part of looking back now at '80s programming Saturday morning.
And kids, we're only a quarter of the way through.
Here comes the bad ones.
Uh-oh.
The bad ones, and you're gonna be like, "What the hell?"
In your opinion.
Well, if you remember them, you're gonna be like, "Oh wow, did I didn't realize they even had that." I don't remember.
All right, well, let's go.
Okay. So, Gilligan's Planet. Do you remember Gilligan's Planet?
I don't want to remember Gilligan's Planet.
Basically,
Hey, let's put Gilligan in space.
basically, they
Star Wars is big.
basically it ran from '80. It ran one season. I'm shocked.
Gilligan, I am
Why
your
am I not
father.
surprised?
It ran. It was basically the concept was the professor built him a spaceship to get off the
Wait
planet.
a minute.
But they go
He couldn't get off an island with a ship, but he puts them in space.
and then they crash land on a planet and yeah.
Unbelievable.
The Dukes.
Oh,
Remember the
jeez.
Dukes? Dukes of Hazzard was such a big thing.
I
like,
remember them trading places.
Let's make every regular sitcom into an animated
So basically,
series.
the Dukes was one season also.
I mean, I guess I could
So
see
it's
the Dukes of
basically-
Hazzard.
And this is how it was funny: is that at the time that it aired, there was contract problems with John Schneider and Tom Opat, who played Bo
The
and
main
Luke,
stars,
the main
yeah.
stars. So they brought in the other guys to play their cousins. Do you remember that? That's the season
Yeah.
nobody wants to remember.
David Soul and
David Soul.
So like, let's incorporate that into the
and
animated
Paul Michael
series.
Glazer.
So the whole concept of the
That's
animated,
Starsky and Hutch.
the whole concept
I
of
thought they
the
brought him in, Andrew.
the whole concept of the animated series was that the Dukes had a race around the world with Boss Hogg and Roscoe, and what was the dog's name? Flash.
Flash, yeah.
They made Flash kind of more funny because it's animated, and they even changed the whole opening again when they had to incorporate the changing of what Tom Opat and
They came back?
They came back. So then they
John
changed-
Schneider?
and Uncle Jesse was back home with his pet raccoon, who they made animated, and kind of was like they had a yeah.
All
right, now-
I'll tell you, I love the casting of that live action movie and stuff like that. The movie wasn't great or whatever, but the Dukes of
that-
Hazzard movie.
Was that with the guy from...
Yeah.
Oh, no, that was good. I own that.
Yeah,
yeah. That
no,
was,
we went to go see it.
Oh, yeah, it was
remember?
very good.
You
Yeah.
had passes to it.
Oh yeah, it
remember?
was funny. The Dukes of Hazzard.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
own it.
yeah.
It was very funny.
Jessica Simpson was
Oh,
Daisy
yeah,
Duke.
yeah, no, I went with you guys, I
Oh,
think.
Willie Nelson was Uncle
Yeah.
Jesse.
I wasn't crazy about Johnny Knoxville as.
And then Burt Reynolds.
But Willie
was,
Nelson,
Burt,
yeah, was perfect as Uncle Jesse, I
Burt,
think.
Burt Reynolds was
Burt Reynolds was Boss Hogg,
Yeah,
yeah.
it wasn't bad. It actually was pretty.
I
I think
never
I went
seen
to
cast like
see
that
that with
again.
you guys.
Yeah.
So now for every Pee-wee's Playhouse, you get Hey Vern, It's Ernest.
Oh, no.
Yes, it came out.
I didn't know he had one
Yes,
of those.
it was. Let's take the Ernest character from the commercials for Sprite, I believe. Right, that's what he was promoting at the time on TV.
I don't think it was
Didn't he have the
Sprite?
movies out yet,
Well,
or was that later on
that
the
was
movies?
Jim
Ernest
Varney.
movies.
Jim Varney, the late,
Great
great,
Jim
the late
Varney.
great Jim Varney,
Who was also
the voice of Slinky Dog in the Toy Story movies.
and Jed Clampett in the Beverly
yeah,
Hillbillies
Beverly
movie.
Hills movie, right?
Yeah,
So anyway,
yeah. That's a nice girl,
Hey
son.
Vern, it's Ernest was just bad. It was just like let's take the Ernest character and put him in situations, and it was one season, and that was it. And now another one that was only one season, and who was with one of the greatest comedians of all time, Richard Pryor, Pryor's Place. It was from 1984.
I
It was
didn't
only
remember
one
that.
season. It was on Saturday mornings around 11:30 on CBS, and he basically played all these different characters. Like he played like a Jamaican guy, with the
Like a Rastafarian?
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
man.
Remember that? And then they
So
actually,
he had like dreads and
dreads
stuff
and all
like
that,
that?
and he
Okay.
played different characters. So, and then they even had the help of Sid and Marty Krofft doing puppets, where there was like a family of rats.
So
that lived
you're telling me that Richard Pryor
did a Saturday
had
morning-
puppets?
Yeah, well,
Richard Pryor with puppets? But
was-
he couldn't say motherfucker.
Yeah, it was just. I remember watching it, and Ray Parker Jr. Speaking of
You-
Ghostbusters earlier,
you rat
he did
motherfucking puppets.
he did the voice of he did not the voice. He sung the theme song. Welcome to Pryor's Place.
Who sang?
Ray Parker Jr.
Ray Parker Jr., the
Yeah.
Ghostbusters guy?
Yeah,
Who
he's-
sang Ghostbusters?
Before
Yeah,
Ghostbusters, I
yeah.
guess.
Oh, wow.
No. This is 80. Yeah, 84. So it's around this.
Oh, so he was at his
around the
peak
same
yeah,
time.
for
yeah.
that.
So they let's
That's
have.
probably how we got the job.
If you go on YouTube, type in Pryor's Place, and you'll see the opening, and there might even be
When I
episodes.
think of Pryor's Place, I feel like it seems like he should have owned like a cafe.
Or like a
something.
bar. or
Come on in, motherfuckers! I'll make it. I'll make you.
You're gonna order a drink, motherfucker?
I'll make some good chili.
We'll get lit and I'll put you on fire. Wait, no, I already did that.
Maybe I'll play a toy.
Remember when he put himself on fire?
Don't worry, I'm not gonna go too close to the
Sitting with
stove.
When he's sitting with Barbara Walters, he says, and when she's talking about him, when he put himself on, when he let himself, get on.
I was
like,
I was
I'm still waiting for that movie.
smoking cocaine.
They were supposed to make Richard Pryor. Eddie Murphy was supposed to play Richard Pryor.
no,
a
then
few
there
years
was
back.
one. No, there was one that.
One that was JoJo Dancer.
JoJo
yes.
did Your Life is
JoJo
Cool.
That was
Dancer,
loosely
yeah.
based on. Yes.
He
Yeah,
played
loosely
himself.
based.
Yeah, he played
But it
him.
was the story.
JoJo Dancer,
Yes,
Your
yes.
Life is Calling. It was called.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
But wasn't it David Wayans was going to play him and Richard Pryor?
A lot of people were gonna play him.
All right.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Tori. Not Tori.
Mike Epps was gonna play.
Mike Epps. Right.
That's
He was,
right.
he was going to play him.
so now going back to what I said earlier about, well, we have a successful movie. Let's make it into an animated series
And ruined it.
and ruin it. Teen Wolf.
Oh yeah.
Teen Wolf
I
actually
remember
ran
that.
for 2 seasons,
I
and it
remember
was
Teen
just, it was
I
just
don't know.
And I
stupid.
guarantee you they didn't have Michael J. Fox.
No,
They
they
wanted
Or
to make
Jason
more
Bateman's
money.
voice.
No, even Teen Wolf 2. Oh
Oh
God,
jeez.
another sequel that you don't want to. Why? What were they thinking? But anyway, Teen Wolf, really horrible Saturday morning TV.
Well, they attempted.
I'm gonna tell you, I love the guy. I met him
Jason
once,
Bateman had his time later on.
and he was one of the most
In the
iconic
films.
actors and character, like of just faces of the '80s. And of course, they had to make him and give him a Saturday morning TV show, and even create a breakfast cereal for him. Yes, Mr. T.
I pity the fool that makes me
Oh
a
my God,
cartoon.
the Mr.
I
T.
pity the fool.
The Mr. T Saturday morning cartoon. I don't know what the hell they were thinking.
Yeah.
Always check the facts. Then you decide. That's a tip from me, Mr. T.
But the cereal was sugary sweet.
I mean,
tasted
it was
like-
basically
tasted like corn.
Make me a
I
cereal.
mean, it was Mr. T and this. Remember the kid, and then the
Make
dog,
it crunchy.
and then remember there was the dog that had the mohawk.
Dog with a mohawk.
And the dog with a mohawk, and they were traveling around the world with a gymnastics team, and they were getting into capers. And at the end, Mr. T would teach you a lesson. And it was
I don't know. I like the Mike Tyson mystery.
Well, that was later on, whatever. But anyway, the Mr. T animated series, it actually, believe it or not, ran for 3 seasons. I don't know
Wow.
how the hell
Because
they
of
pulled
Mr.
that
T.
off.
How long did the
Mr. T.
cereal last?
Here's another one, Adam.
128.
Here's another one, Adam, if you remember this, because I know you
Rod
were a
Adams
big
and
fan
preservatives.
of this character on SNL. The Completely Mental Misadventures of Ed Grimley.
Oh,
I must say, I thought that was a Disney cartoon. Yes, I think it was.
And ran for
Do you know Pat
But
Sajak?
I'll tell
It
you.
ran for 1 season, thankfully.
I'll tell
And
you.
actually,
But anything with Martin Short, I will watch.
Martin Short.
Do you
that-
remember the series?
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. I love that show with Steve Martin and Selena
Yeah,
Gomez.
yeah. Murders in a...
Oh, that's great.
yeah.
And it's about a podcast, a murder podcast.
Is
So-
that what it's about?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a great show.
Yeah.
I highly suggest that. It's on you.
But do any of you guys remember the Ed Grimley animated?
Only Murders in the Building.
Remember?
I do remember the show. Yeah, I liked them Ed Grimley. I thought that character was like kooky and funny.
So I guess NBC thought so, and they gave him a
Martin
set.
Short period.
Yeah.
I like Martin. He's very talented.
But I guess the NBC.
Jiminy Glick?
No, you know what I like? You know what I like? I was
That was
thinking about
good.
it. You know what I was thinking about? I was thinking about it. You ever remember Arrested Development?
Yeah, of course.
Launch me!
Whoa. You just broke the microphone.
I'm sorry.
I don't
I'm sorry.
know.
I'm sorry.
Outside
Remember he was the uncle? The uncle? The
That's
uncle?
so wrong.
Remember the uncle? The uncle or whatever? He couldn't walk. He couldn't move his legs or whatever. So he was carried around.
Sorry about the distorted audio that Adam caused in this program.
Anyway,
Please turn down your audio. Thank you.
so going on to that. All right, now here's another
I
thing.
love Martin Short.
What was the 80s MTV generation music videos?
Yeah.
So let's create a animated series that's live action and animated about kids that get thrown onto the flip side, and let's call it Kid Video.
What's the flip side?
It was the animated world.
Oh,
All right, but do
okay.
you guys remember Kid Video?
Sounds familiar.
All right. Well, anyway, one of the members of the live action Kid Video was an adult Cousin Oliver from the Brady Bunch.
Oh, wow.
That actor.
The little
Yeah.
blonde kid
Yeah,
with the bowl
glasses.
cut? Yeah.
So he ended up
What's
being a
his
big
name?
kid with the
What was
glasses.
his name?
Right.
Oh, Cousin Oliver.
Kid Video was basically, like one season, thankfully. And at the end of every episode, there actually was the Kid Video band of all of them doing a music video.
Heard of it, never
But they
remember.
would throw in video clips of groups and things like Duran Duran.
Was it
and
like
stuff.
half live action?
Yeah,
half
it was right.
animated?
Yeah, at the end it was the live action.
Speaking
music
of
video.
which,
yeah.
Kids Incorporated. Are we going to get to that?
Well, that's early, like Sunday morning kind of program because I think that ended. That was Saturday, Sunday morning.
No, that's Saturday.
All right, so
Was
that
it Saturday?
I'm pretty sure that was
Yeah.
Saturday.
Wasn't there somebody famous that came out of that show?
Well, there was a couple. It was,
So-
it was Martika,
Martika. Toy Soldiers.
Stacey Ferguson, also known as Fergie.
Fergie.
And there was the other girl, Stacey. No, not Stacey. The one that was before Fergie.
Not Sanchez.
No. Before Fergie joined she was a member of
Wild
Black Eyed
Orchid.
Peas.
Wild
Black Eyed Peas.
Orchid.
She had a group, Wild Orchid, that was a
three.
three-girl group, and one of the other members of Wild Orchid was part of Kids Incorporated. But anyway, another thing that you can have successful movies at a time and take characters and let's create Saturday morning cartoons after them. I'm going to give you two of them. Star Wars Droids.
I remember that.
It was so boring and it sucked. Let's take C-3PO and R2-D2 and put them in situations, and it just wasn't good. And then the Ewoks Saturday morning thing.
You could probably watch that on Disney now, right?
They're all on Disney Plus.
Yeah.
It just wasn't good. Then let's take another, and like I said, then NBC was infamous of let's take a very successful TV show of its time, and let's put him in or her into an animated form. This is where you get Alf Tales. So basically, Alf. Well, there's two Alf. There was actually two.
Alf.
There was two Alf Saturday morning
Tales of
cartoons.
the Alf.
Mrs. Alf,
And you got the same guy who did the voice of Alf, and they put Alf into situations where it's like Alf and like kind of Jack and the Beanstalk and kind of all these different things. Then you had Alf the animated series, which were actually, believe it or not, ran for 2 seasons, and it was Alf when his life on Melmac and stuff.
My home planet,
Right.
Melmac.
So didn't do well, and I was a huge fan of the Alf television show, but the animated show I hated.
Didn't
It was
they
just-
also make like animated series from like video games and
Yeah,
stuff?
I'm going to get into that. Oh, that's a whole nother thing. Now this is where I'm getting into. Pac-Man, which was on ABC.
Pac-Man was big.
ran for 2 seasons. Started in 1982.
Pac-Man was very big back then.
Pac-Man was everywhere. Merchandising, galore,
Atari.
T-shirts everywhere. So they're like, well, let's make
Game
them into
places.
a Saturday morning cartoon show.
Game rooms.
So Pac-Man, you guys you definitely remember the
Pac-Man
Pac-Man.
Fever, the song.
Yeah, Pac-Man
Remember the
Fever.
song
Yeah.
Pac-Man Fever?
And I
Yeah.
remember, wasn't
There
there
was a Christmas
um,
special, the Pac-Man Christmas special.
No, I remember there was a vampire Pac-Man.
Fridays. Remember the
I
show
want
Fridays?
to chomp your bones. I remember
No,
you said.
Remember the show Fridays? They did like a Pac-Man
You know, I'm
sketch.
watching that now
Yeah.
on Tubi.
What? Pac-Man?
Fridays. I keep forgetting to watch it again.
Michael Richards
I'm like,
is on that
right,
from
right,
Seinfeld.
yeah.
And Andy Kaufman would show up.
That's right.
And in Man on the Moon, who played Michael Richards' character?
I don't know.
The late, great Norm Macdonald.
Oh, okay.
Oh, McDonald's.
So anyway, this is a lot. Like, we got to get through this list. So, remember when I mentioned about where they did it with Scooby-Doo? Well, we've done everything with Scooby-Doo, so now let's make Scooby-Doo a pup, and when the kids are small. So they did the same thing with the Flintstones. Flintstone Kids.
I remember that.
And it just was not.
I didn't
cool.
watch it, but I remember
it ran
that.
for 2 seasons. It started in '86. And good. This is the big one here that you can watch clips on YouTube. You can watch the intros. You can even watch some episodes if they're available. ABC at this time was the #1 network in the country. They had the best programming. So, especially the ABC Tuesday night lineup where you had Happy Days, Laverne and Shirley, Three's Company, and Taxi. ABC decided, let's take that and then incorporate another show that was big on Wednesday nights. So you had Happy Days, Laverne and Shirley, and Mork and Mindy. Let's make them into animated.
Oh, wow.
So we all remember this.
I remember that.
It was the Fonz and the Happy Days gang. So basically, and this was 1981 it started.
Okay.
So at this point, Ron Howard and Donnie Most, who played Ralph and Richie,
they were already gone.
They're already gone, but they decided to come and do this, lend their voices, along with Henry Winkler, and they basically, so the whole premise of the show is that they're at Arnold's and this spaceship comes down.
Yeah, fuck Ted McGinley, I guess.
Well, yeah. So basically,
they didn't want the show to fail.
Yes.
So,
Well, and basically, this space chick called Cupcake.
Space Chick
Cupcake. Who
was that her name? Space Chick.
No, it was called Cupcake. Okay.
Can't call her Space Chick today. Or
And
Cupcake.
she comes down from outer space.
Amazing, huh?
And Fonz actually had a dog sidekick called Mr. Cool.
Mr. Cool.
And the voice was done by Frank Welker, who was known for doing so many voices on things. So they basically go into her ship, and it's a time thing. And they keep getting stuck.
So they travel in
They travel in time, then they're trying to get back to 1957 Milwaukee or whatever it is, and they can't, and they just.
So where did they go?
They went to like the Viking era or the prehistoric
The Viking?
era, and they're trying to always get.
Hey, Vikings, cool it.
But the
Hey.
but the funny thing is, it was kind of like you see in Henry Winkler. You're hearing the voices, but they're in animated
Right.
form. It was horrible.
He had
And
the
it-
leather jacket.
Had the leather
Did
jacket.
he jump the shark?
I liked it.
What, the Fonz and the Happy Days guy?
Yeah, I kind of I remember liking it as a kid. I guess maybe because I liked Happy Days
Well,
a lot. It was
Happy
fun.
Days, yeah,
That was the biggest
Nostalgic
thing. It
Happy
was the
big
Days,
thing.
I guess.
So you're like, oh shit, they made
In
the
my
Fonz
little,
animated.
pre-tween mind or whatever is fun to see.
And then they took Laverne and Shirley and they
Cartoon
based
Happy
it on
Days.
one episode when they did go into the army. So they
Right,
put
I
Laverne and
remember
Shirley in the army, and
That was ridiculous.
And the drill
I remember
sergeant was
seeing
a
that on
pig.
YouTube.
Remember the drill sergeant?
I saw that on YouTube a few years back.
Drill
It was
sergeant
ridiculous.
was a pig.
A pig,
And it
yeah.
was just so then eventually it ended up where the Fonz ended up showing up on the territory with them.
Kind of like Joe Newell's Chachi.
Where he showed up just to save the show. And then they had.
I watched that a few-
And then they had
few
Mork
months
and
ago,
Mindy.
too.
Now the whole premise of Mork and Mindy was they took the same premise of Mork landing on Earth and meeting Mindy, but this time it was when he met her when she's in college.
Okay.
And then, so he makes his egg into like a little mobile ship, and he has his alien friend that looked like a space.
You mean like a car? He made the egg into like a car?
He turned the egg into a car.
Okay.
It looked like an egg
I don't
car.
remember this.
Yeah.
I remember Happy
Watch
Days.
the trailer on YouTube or the episodes. And he had a companion that looked like a space kind of like poodle type alien thing that was like his sidekick. Because, every animated character now needs a sidekick.
A dog or whatever.
And so it was just, but Robin Williams and Pandora did the voices. So they did get the same actors to
Did
come
they
in.
get a cereal too or no?
No. Okay, now Adam, we
was
talked
one
about this
more
the other day.
cereal?
Remember Rubik the Amazing
No.
Cube?
Yes.
So bad.
I don't remember
So
it.
bad.
Let's make a toy
but he
into
was
an
talking about
animated
it.
series.
And it was
Let me
about
talk
this
about
thing that traveled through time, and it was this cube, and it was bad.
Speaking of
One
cubes,
season, 1983, thank God.
What about Cubert?
I'm going to get into that now. Now, being that ABC had Pac-Man, CBS counterattacked by creating Saturday Supercade. So
Saturday Supercade?
what Saturday Supercade consisted of: Donkey Kong Jr., Kangaroo, Frogger, Cubert, Pitfall Harry, Space Ace, all these video games.
Anything for $1.
And let's create them in animated form, and it was just bad.
This is like
It
what
was
they're
just
doing
bad.
now, except they're not doing, Saturday morning cartoons or afternoon cartoons now. They're big features, and it's paying off because the Super Mario Brothers movie was one of the biggest hits of last year.
Right, but we're going to get into the after school one that was bad with Captain Lou Albano.
Oh.
Which
Well,
they
that's
made,
because Cindy Lauper didn't show up.
which they made fun of in the beginning of the Super Mario Brothers movie. Well, anyway, I mentioned droids, but the one with the Adventures of C-3PO and R2-D2, so that's another bad one. All right, so now for every Smurfs you have out there, you have the bad version, which was
Snorks.
You got it. Let's take the Smurfs and put them underwater. You have Snorks. Just wasn't cool. It just was boring.
Well, if you
it
wanted to
wasn't
drown
fun.
them, they were already there. So if you can figure, I guess you're gonna have to.
It was these little, they were they weren't ugly. They were
What did
cute,
they do?
But they ran. No, they
was
had
there a
the songs.
Gargamel? Was there a? Who was their nemesis?
I don't remember. It just
Who was the villain?
It just wasn't. But some people were saying, "Oh, I like the Snorks."
Missed that one.
But it was just too similar. It was Hanna-Barbera. So and the animation looked exactly. Let's just take it. All right, you guys remember the Gary Coleman show?
No, I remember Gary Coleman. Different Strokes.
Okay, so basically there was an early '80s TV movie about the kid with the broken halo.
Aside from being
remember that, the kid with the broken halo.
I remember all his movies.
All right, so there
on the right track.
All right, kid with the broken halo.
The one where he was the arsonist. The kid who set fires.
Remember the one? Remember the one who wrote the book on how to solve a crime or whatever, how to be kidnapped?
Oh no,
I don't remember any of that.
But anyway. So the Gary Coleman show was loosely based on the kid with the broken halo, where he played an angel, or
Right.
So he sent.
But there was no racial diversity.
No, so he sent down to Earth to help people out, and it was just so bad. I remember they would rerun it on USA Kids Express. Remember the animated series or whatever? But that was bad. Remember Munchie Cheese?
Munchie Cheese, yeah.
Munchie
Wasn't that a toy?
It was a toy. So here we go. Now
that stuck in my head one day. I was like, it just came out.
Cross promotion.
I'm singing at work.
Let's create a product. Does well. Let's make it into an animated series.
Wait, speaking of which,
well, what was the
there?
Munchie? What was the Munchie?
Cabbage Patch.
Was there ever a Cabbage Patch?
What was the Munchie?
It
looked like a
monkey?
Like a
monkey.
Furry thing. A furry thing. So Munchie
okay, all right.
Munchie Cheese. Do you guys remember It's Punky Brewster?
Yes, I do.
I remember the TV show Punky Brewster.
That ran for 2 seasons, started in '85. So Soleil Moon Frye came back. So did
she did the voice.
Soleil Moon Frye is now the mother of 4.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
but she'll always be known for Punky Brewster.
So what happened?
And she's gorgeous. She's still gorgeous as a.
By the way, she's gorgeous.
Super cougar. She's a super cougar.
So what happened?
I'm not going to say the other thing because.
Anyway, so Punky Brewster was her, and
she was always exotic too.
And then basically her friends. What was it like? She had like a little character like an imaginary. I don't know. It just didn't. It was like
I don't remember that one.
NBC. We have a hit show. Let's make it animated. No, let's not. Remember Dragon's Lair?
Yeah, I remember that.
Yes, I remember
Dragon's Lair was the animation of Don Bluth.
Was that based on the video game?
On the video game, correct. It was on one season.
And where did we go to play?
King's Plaza.
No.
I went to King's Plaza. Buddies?
I went to Chuck E. Cheese to play.
I went to Buddies.
Dragon's Lair.
All I know is with Dragon's Lair, wasn't it the quick three?
That was a cool ass video.
No, but all right, but
that's when Disney was Disney.
Okay, but no, it wasn't Disney.
Wasn't Disney?
No, it wasn't. Wasn't that on Disney?
No, Don Bluth left Disney. Remember? He left Disney and formed his own studio.
Oh, fuck Disney.
Yeah. Fuck Disney. They were on my good side for 5 minutes.
I said it every day now.
All right. But remember Dragon's Lair, the video game?
I loved it.
But it was I used to love it.
It was hard.
It was hard.
It would take for a while for it to load.
Because you were playing a cartoon.
No, but that's what I was going to say. Wasn't it the quickest 3 outs you ever had in a video game?
And it was
like, I need more quarters.
I need more quarters.
Wasn't it like $3 to play that
it was like crazy.
Because the animation was so
It was ahead of its time.
If you actually go on YouTube, type
it's a shame they didn't make more like that.
Well, they did Space Ace.
Space Ace.
Which that's the CBS version.
Yeah.
No, the video game.
The video game,
yeah, it's video game. That's why CBS had it part of Saturday Super
I gotta look that up.
Anyway, if you want something cool, the video game was very hard. But if you go on YouTube, type in Dragon's Lair, you will see the entire video game completed. So you knew, okay, if you completed this is what happened. So basically, it told the entire tale. It's kind of cool. Pole position.
Oh, that was my favorite video game.
But a horrible animated series.
I didn't even know that it was an animated series.
I was more of a role
All right, now
blasters
this
guy.
next one goes out to our good friend Daniel Montanez, who I don't even think Danny remembered this one.
Yo, there's a Karate Kid
There was
show.
a Karate Kid animated series. It was on in 1989. It was only one season.
Don't remember.
And it was about Daniel, Mr. Miyagi.
I don't remember
and they had to get this artifact back or something. And they were like running around the
it was bad.
It was bad. One season. It was just so
Speaking
bad.
of Karate
I
Kid,
didn't see it, but it's
what
on
was
the
that,
bad list.
episode
It's on the
8?
bad list. It's
Was
on
that
the-
our episode 8? You guys could check our YouTube channel out and look for our episode with the Karate Kid.
Okay.
I'm glad you mentioned that, Mike.
Okay. Thank you, Michael. That ad has been brought to you by Dungeons and Dragons, the animated series. Anyway, now when I talked about things that are out there that get so popular, like let's make it into an animated series. So in around 1986, what was so big that people were going and playing all around was laser tag.
Oh yeah, laser tag.
So
I wanted that. I wanted that laser tag set.
You could still buy it today.
I think I asked for
They
Christmas.
still make
and
laser tag.
Hanukkah. I never got it.
Well, anyway, there was Laser Tag Academy. It was only on, thankfully, one season, and it was just a bad concept. I believe it ran on NBC. You'd have to look it up. Doesn't really matter, but they based it on a very popular, active game, Brave Star.
Never
Which
heard
was
of it.
kind of like a Western type of He-Man type of thing. It just was not good.
Never heard of it.
Not good. So that basically covers Saturday morning.
And that was part 1 through 5.
That covers Saturday morning. So we will now get into the after school programming of the 70s and 1980s.
Remember to click the like button, subscribe, and the notification bell. Stay tuned for episode 14, part 2, coming in the next few weeks.